name is Taimi. I'm a earthquake seismologist with the Geological Survey of Canada. Right now I'm working with the Canadian Geological Survey, and we run the seismic network for all of Canada. We have two offices, one in Ottawa and one in Victoria. The one I work in Victoria, actually out by the airport in Sydney, and we're responsible for monitoring all the earthquakes in Western Canada. The waveforms data comes into our office on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We're swamped in data, and I do a lot of data management. It's one of my jobs is to make sure that all this gets the waveforms get written off to disk, and that people look at them, locate the earthquake, and that when we locate the earthquake, that information gets stored properly. And like Tara, I've discovered that getting really friendly with the computer has helped me an awful lot. In fact, I've had to learn an awful lot about the computer, and it was something I avoided for a long, long time, because I really didn't want to be a system administrator. And I've learned a lot more about computer systems than I ever thought I would have to know. I fortunately will never be a computer system administrator, thank goodness. I don't think that's a job for me. But knowing a lot about how these things work, the how and the why, has really made me much, much better at my job. It's helped me understand the whole process of running a seismic network. And that whole process for me, the understanding, it started off shortly after university. I did my undergrad at UBC, and after my undergrad, I worked with a geological contracting company that took me to a job in Rossland, where I worked on mineral sampling for soil sampling for 4 weeks. And that involves taking soil, putting it in a bag, putting it in your backpack, marching another 50 meters, putting soil in a bag, putting it in your backpack, and going on with these 2-kilometer lines. You walk out doing this all the way to the end of the line, and then hike back and meet up with the other 2 people who are also doing this. And go back to the hotel, do this day on, day off for 4 weeks. And that was my first job. That had nothing to do with earthquakes, but it was also working in very heavy brush. There'd been a forest fire in that area before, and about 10 years earlier, in the underbrush, the trees had started growing up, and a lot of them were about this high. There was actually a couple of those lines where myself and another guy who'd been prospecting for 10 years, we were on different lines, but we couldn't go very far. Like I couldn't even go half the distance I was supposed to go that day because the underbrush was so thick. I remember getting very annoyed with it because I had to carry a shovel with me, and this was in the winter, it was November, and I kept slipping on the snow, and the trees would steal my hat, and they'd steal my shovel, and I was getting really annoyed with it. So I decided I didn't really want to do this so much anymore. I like being outside, I just didn't like those particular conditions. I liked walking on the ridges. I liked it when I didn't have to battle with the underbrush to do what I had to do. So I went back to the employment center at UBC, and I looked at the jobs that were available. There was a posting for a job in the high Arctic, and it was running a geophysical observatory. So I thought, oh, that sounds exciting. And the whole reason I wanted to go was so I could see the northern lights. I thought that'd be so cool. Well, fortunately, I got the job. So I thought, this is great. Then, unfortunately, it turns out that I was in the high Arctic. And I was at the northern end of Ellesmere Island at 82 degrees north. And the very unfortunate thing is, I was too far north to see the northern lights. It turns out that they actually go in a ring around the North Pole, the North Magnetic Pole, which is near Resolute. I'll let you go home and look up Resolute on the map. It's in the high Arctic in Canada. And anyway, I was in this polar cap region where you don't see the northern lights at all, so I was very disappointed. But the rest of it was pretty cool. The sun definitely goes around and around and around the sky in the summer, and it never, ever, ever gets dark. And in the winter, there is no sun. Sunset was, let's see, it first started getting dark in October. No, I'm wrong. Sometime in the beginning of September, by the end of October, it was completely dark. So sunset was about a month long, and then there was winter, and then sunrise was in March, about another month. And then it was summer again. And I ran into a geophysical observatory there. And that involved 6 seismometers, actually 7 seismometers, and 3 that measured really high frequency waves that you end up getting from local earthquakes, and 3 instruments that measured very long frequency waves that come from more distant earthquakes and larger earthquakes. And there was another type of seismometer there which really measured earth tides. It measured which are about once a day, so very long period in the seismic world. And then we also had magnetometers set up there. So I measured the location, the declination and the inclination of the Earth's magnetic field. So that was interesting because I was north of the North Magnetic Pole. So that was pretty exciting. So that kind of got me in at the ground level in my field, doing kind of some of the bread and butter work, maintaining this station. Then I worked in Ottawa for a couple of years with the same group that hired me to go there. And I learned about archiving data. Then I decided I was going to go back to school and do my graduate degree. And so I did that. And upon completion, I worked with the Geological Survey's office in Victoria. And I have worked there for, actually, I have to omit that. When I completed my grad school, there wasn't a job available, so I actually went and worked in New York for 2 years. And during that time, they sent me off to Kazakhstan to work in the seismic array in Kazakhstan. So that was pretty exciting. Spent a month over there, knew nothing about Russian, and learned a lot of words. By the time I was done, the guy I was working with said I could be a dairy farmer, because we had to go drive 3 hours out to the site and back. And I learned all the words about the cows and the horses and the sheep. And then we would go to the market and get cream in these big jugs. It was so good. Anyway, I learned all these important words. And I finished that, got the job doing what I told you about at the beginning of my talk, and here I am today talking to you. So the one thing that stood me in really good stead in my job has been my knowledge and willingness to tackle technology, which I was steering away from, and also taking a lot of math and physics courses at school. And if physics scares you, I picked this up at the airport on the way here. It's called Stephen Hawking's A Briefer History of Time. He wrote a book called A Brief History of Time, which was thicker. And I saw this, and it's an even briefer history of time. And in the beginning, he describes in the first, or probably about third chapter, which is exceedingly short, he describes that whole thing that we did for our keynote speaker, where you drop the potato and the crumple that piece of paper, which one's going to hit first. He tells you all of physics, and it's real easy, and it's in words, and there's no equations. So I recommend it. Thank you.